Hey everyone, and welcome. Right now, there's this quiet revolution happening in artificial intelligence. It's totally reshaping how technology thinks, acts, and even collaborates. We're talking about Agentic AI, and in this explainer, we are going to break down exactly what it is, and more importantly, why you should care. And if you're wondering why we're talking about this right now, well, you just have to look at the numbers. Seriously. The market for AI agents is set to just skyrocket. We're talking from around $7.6 billion in 2025 to over $50 billion by 2030. That's not just growth, that's an absolute explosion. And it signals a massive shift in how businesses are going to operate. So, what in the world is an AI agent? Well, at its heart, it's a piece of software that can pretty much operate on its own. The best way to think about it is like a digital coworker. It can perceive its environment, whether that's a database, an app, or the whole internet. It makes its own decisions, and then it takes action to hit a specific goal. And it does all of this without needing a person to micromanage every single step. All right, to really wrap our heads around this, we're going to walk through 5 key areas. First up, we'll talk about what makes agentic AI so different from what you might be used to. Then we're going to pop the hood and look at its core components and how they're actually built. After that, we'll dive into some amazing real-world examples. And finally, we'll look ahead to the mind-bending future of multi-agent systems. Okay, let's kick things off with the big question. What really makes this technology so different? It really all comes down to a fundamental shift from just simple automation to true independent autonomy. So check out this contrast. On one hand, you've got traditional automation. It's rigid, right? You give it a fixed set of rules and it follows them perfectly, but it cannot adapt to save its life. Agentic AI is a whole different ballgame. You don't give it step-by-step instructions, you give it a goal. It then goes and figures out the best way to get there, learning and adapting as it goes. It's basically the difference between a simple calculator and a brilliant strategic assistant. And you should know, not all agents are created equal. It's more like a spectrum. On the simple end, you have reactive agents. Think of a smart thermostat that just turns on the heat when it gets cold. A step up from that, you have proactive agents, which are more goal-oriented. Maybe an agent that notices you're low on milk and just adds it to your shopping list. And then at the top, you have the really sophisticated learning agents, which actually get smarter over time, kind of like a recommendation engine that gets creepily good at suggesting movies you'll love. Okay, so we get what they are. But how do they actually work? Let's go ahead and open up the black box and take a look at the core components that really give an agent its power. So at the heart of any AI agent are a few key superpowers. You've got autonomy, which lets it work on its own, adaptability, so it can change course when things go sideways, but two of the most critical pieces, and the ones we're going to focus on, are tool use and memory. These are absolutely essential for tackling real-world problems. Tool use, which developers sometimes call function calling, is basically like giving an agent superpowers. See, an AI model by itself is just a brain in a box. It doesn't know what's happening in the world right now. Tool use lets it connect to external software and data through something called an API. Just think of an API as a bridge that lets different programs talk to each other. So when you ask, hey, what's the weather in London? The agent uses this bridge to talk to a weather tool, turning your question into a command that tool understands, and boom, it gets you a real-time answer. And just like us, agents need memory to function. They have short-term memory, which is like your working memory. It keeps track of the current conversation so the dialogue feels natural and doesn't get confused. But the real game changer is long-term memory. This is where an agent can store and pull up vast amounts of information, giving it deep knowledge and context from everything it's learned in the past. It's a huge deal. So we've got the components, but how do you actually go about building one of these things? Let's take a quick look at the basic process that developers follow to bring an agent to life. Building an agent isn't just magic. It's a really structured journey. It all starts with planning. What's this agent's purpose? Then comes the design, which is like creating a blueprint for how it's going to think and act. After that, you get to the actual coding, followed by tons of testing to make sure it works. And finally, the agent is deployed out into the real world where it's constantly monitored and improved. It's a full life cycle, not just a one-and-done kind of thing. And the good news for anyone wanting to build these is that they don't have to start from scratch. There are these awesome open-source frameworks, like LangChain and Llama Index, that provide a ton of the essential building blocks. They give you pre-built components for things like memory and tool use, which just dramatically speeds up the whole development process. But wait, how do we make sure an agent isn't just spitting out old generic information from its training? That's where this crucial technique called Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or RAG, comes in. This is what allows an agent to connect to an external knowledge base, like a company's private documents or a real-time database, and pull in fresh, relevant info before it gives you an answer. This is what makes an agent truly useful in the real world. Okay, this is where it gets really cool. Let's pivot from the theory to the practice and see the massive impact these agents are already having across some major industries. And this just shows you how wide-ranging the applications are. In healthcare, you've got agents streamlining the nightmare of claims processing. In finance, they are slashing credit approval times by over 90%. And get this, in supply chain, an agent can monitor inventory, find a backup supplier if something's out of stock, and automatically place the order, all without a human lifting a finger. And let's put a real dollar figure on that impact. For just one large regional bank, if they gave AI agents to just 100 of their business development officers to handle paperwork and find insights, that could create an opportunity worth $34 million annually. That's the incredible scale of value we're talking about here. And here is a fantastic real-world story to drive the point home. United Wholesale Mortgage used AI and ended up doubling the productivity of its underwriters. This isn't just some theory. This means faster loan approvals and a way better experience for literally thousands of their clients. This is tangible, measurable impact happening right now. All right, on to our final section. If just one agent is this powerful, what happens when you get a whole group of them working together? Let's look ahead to the next big frontier, multi-agent systems. A multi-agent system is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You have multiple agents all collaborating to solve a problem that's way too complex for any one of them to handle alone. The analogy to a swarm of bees or a colony of ants is just perfect. It's not about one super smart agent. It's about the incredible emergent intelligence that comes from many different agents coordinating their actions. But of course, this new frontier comes with some pretty big new challenges. As these agents start talking to each other, we have to think about the risks. What if they fail to cooperate? That could be from simple miscoordination or even outright conflict. And then there's an even trickier risk, collusion, where agents cooperate in a way that's actually harmful, like getting together to artificially fix prices in a market. These are the critical problems that researchers are working hard to solve as we speak. And that really brings us to the final critical question that we're all going to be facing. The future is clearly collaborative. You can imagine teams of AI agents tackling humanity's biggest challenges, from discovering new medicines to managing global supply chains. The question is, how do we make sure that as these powerful systems start working together, they do so for the benefit of all of us? That's the challenge, and frankly, the massive opportunity that lies ahead. Thanks so much for joining us.